Well, good evening, Richmond. Welcome. Want to thank you again for joining us. This is episode 6, our sixth and final. We've been talking for these last several weeks about the question that we posed for the night. Are we living in communism, American style? And of course, your friendly neighborhood hatchet man, Brother Craig, which that's, for those of you who don't know, that's my radio name. I'm host of The Really Real Deal over at WLEE and on our national podcast on blogtalk.com. But the answer is a simple yes. But over these last 6 weeks, we've broken it down because it's really not that simple. It's a very complex web that these American-style communists have woven here to capture the American people. And it didn't happen overnight. It's not all Barack Obama. Barack Obama is just the most recent, and I might add, the most successful at doing exactly what he promised to do, which is to fundamentally transform the United States of America. And so that's what we're living in, the fundamental transformation from a nation that's fundamentally free into a nation that's totally unfree. And these neoliberals have adopted the name progressives. And this progressivism, they want you to think, is all about making progress. But the actual fact of the matter, Richmond, is that it's all about making progress towards socialism, communism, fascism, crony capitalism, whatever type of ism you want to put on it. That's really and truly the name of the game. And so we want to thank you for joining us again. And I really want to thank the fine folks at Comcast and Verizon. They make this broadcast possible. I want to thank also Akil and Dwelle, who are the two engineers that they're in the control room. I could not do this program without them. So they've been great over the past 6 weeks. So I want to say thank you to those fine gentlemen. And we're going to have a guest to call in. As a matter of fact, we may have a couple of guests. We have our first guest will be calling in just a very few moments. And her name is Cheryl K. Chumley. And she has written a book called Police State USA. And the subtitle is, Has America Become the Police State Envisioned by George Orwell in his book, 1984. And Cheryl is going to join us, and this is a graphic here of the book. And actually, the book is not due to even be released until the 27th of this month. So we're getting a really an early, their publicists asked us to do this, and just so happened we were willing to do this tonight. And being that this is our final segment, we're going to talk not only about the police state nature of the way the direction of our nation is going, but also how the media controls the information that you receive. And one of the insidious things about American-style communism that differentiates it from, say, Soviet-style communism is that when someone has a gun in your face, or there's a tank rolling up your street, or there are a bunch of jackbooted thugs who are goose-stepping through the street in formation, you know that there's communism. It's no doubt about it. You know that it's communism, even though they quite often they hold sham elections and they install puppet governments. You know, the Soviet Union was a collection of 11 nations that basically had been conquered, but quite often they would have a sham election, which they're trying to engineer another one over in the Ukraine as we speak. And so, which, you know, they did in Crimea a month or two ago. So, which is the far eastern part of Ukraine. But in American-style communism, the idea is to convince you to give up your individual liberty. And remember, folks, that the promise of America, the reason that America became the shining city on a hill. It's not that our hills and valleys are any different from the hills and valleys in Russia or in any other part of Europe or in Africa, South America, or any part of the planet. All nations have trees, grass, farmland, rivers, streams, lakes, mineral wealth. They all have that. All nations have people willing to work. Well, what made America rise to the top? Because America was founded on the idea that your individual liberty, your freedom is a gift from God, something that you're born with, something that the state does not have the power to grant, nor has the power to take away. And so these political progressives are just little by little taking this from you, fundamentally transforming the nation, to use the words of Barack Hussein Obama, and transforming this nation into a police state, transforming this nation bit by bit into first socialist and then eventually communist. And remember, folks, we've discussed this in previous weeks, that Vladimir Ilyich Lenin, he stated that universal health care is the keystone to the archway of socialism. He further stated that the purpose of socialism is communism. The purpose of socialism is not to make you happy, is not to give you things, is not to take things from one person and give them to you out of some benevolent love for you. It's to be in control of your life. It's to be able to manipulate the levers of power throughout all society without having earned that right by serving your fellow man, which is what the antithesis of that is all about, which is free enterprise. Free enterprise, people doing trade with one another without force, without coercion. No one will say, well, if you don't participate in this Obama scam healthcare debacle, that we're going to fine you 1% or whatever percent it is of your income, or 2,000, 5,000, 10,000. They're not going to do anything. And then if you don't fork the money over, you go to prison. And what people don't really realize is that when it gets really, really serious like that, death even is not off the table. You'll notice whenever you go into a courtroom, there's a bailiff in there, and that bailiff has a gun on it, strapped on him. He's the only one in the courtroom with a gun. And if you, the silent implication is, if you don't do exactly what we say do, this gun can be used to make sure that you do it, or else you will be shot. And it doesn't happen often, but it has happened, and the potential is there. And this is nothing more than police state tactics, and it's incremental. It is progressivism. And so we're looking very much forward to, and I want to share with you a little bit about Cheryl Chumley and her book, Police State USA. And she's saying that we're wondering what happened to America, that in 10 years, our children won't know the same America of our youth. And in 25 years, we won't recognize America at all. The Constitution will be thrown into the same trash pile that where they put the Bible. And many of you folks know that in 1962, they kicked God right out of schools with a lawsuit in Baltimore. I happened to interview the gentleman whose mother, Madeline Murray O'Hare, filed the lawsuit on his behalf. He was reared as a communist and as an atheist. He's now a Christian evangelist. Okay, so, but before God got kicked out of the school system, which is the point where many people point to as the beginning of the decline of America, to get to this place where there could be this communistic takeover, communism American style, no tanks through the streets, American style. They're convincing you to freely give up your liberty by treating you like Esau, saying if you accept these freebies, just sell me your birthright and I'll give you free health care, free food stamps, free housing, free whatever. And of course, nothing is free. It's just you don't have to pay. We're going to make someone else pay. And then we'll sock it out of you later after the deal is done. And so the thing is, this is what makes it so insidious, because there are so many people who lack the character to take care of themselves that they will fall for such. And they accomplish this by creating envy and strife, which is what communism always does. Every communistic nation, they put people at each other. They're Jewish, you have to hate them. They're gypsies, you have to hate them. They might be black like you, but they're from a different tribe. So you have to take your machetes and you have to go in there and you have to chop them up. And it's always the same thing. It is divide and conquer. And we want to say thank you for calling and welcome you on with Brother Craig here as we discuss communism American style. Yes, you're on live.
Oh, hi, this is Cheryl Chumley.
Okay, thank you so much. And wow, we were able to pull this off on short notice, so thank you so much. And I've just been talking to the audience a little bit about this book you've written, Police State USA, and it fits perfectly with the subject we've been discussing here over the past 6 weeks, which is, are we living in communism American style?
Yeah, I hear you've been covering that topic in depth. That's some good work you have going.
Thank you. Thank you. So share a little bit with the audience about your background and how you came to have an interest in this subject.
Well, my background, currently I'm a news writer with the Washington Times, and I spent quite an amount of time researching my book, Police State USA, because I was concerned about the direction of this nation. And it seemed to me that no matter who was in office, Republican or Democrat, we end up getting the same result. And what's happened over the last couple decades, I believe, but particularly since September 11th terrorist attack on our soils, is that we're losing our freedoms left and right, and pretty soon this nation, we won't even know who we are anymore, and we will have strayed so far from our founding father intent, we won't even have the right to call ourselves true Americans.
Yeah, and people have forgotten that our freedom is a gift from God, according to the preamble, that the government has no power to even grant us rights, let alone take them away, that they are what they termed inalienable. Meaning you're born with them. They cannot be taken away. You have to literally give it up yourself.
I'm so glad you brought up that point, because that right there is the core premise of my book. And to me, it's the most important thing that Americans have to realize, remember, and continue to fight for. If we lose sight of the fact that we were a nation built on rights come from God, not government, then who are we? We're no different from any other nation, and we're going to crumble. That's the greatest asset we have, and that's the one that we're most at risk of losing.
Yes, yes. So now, share, Obama promised back when I think 5 days before he was inaugurated, that he was going to fundamentally and he said this in front of the whole nation, that we are 5 days away from the fundamental transformation of America. Not we're going to restore America, we're going to fix what's broken, fundamental transformation. And I don't I beat up on Obama, as hard as he deserves, which is a lot, but I don't lay it all at his feet. But he is the only president to make such a promise about, most presidents at least pretend to believe in the things that ordinary Americans believe in.
And didn't he, though? I mean, hasn't he changed the fundamental basis of our nation? Just look at Obamacare, with that one sweep of the pen, as he likes to brag about, and a complicit media, as well as a Supreme Court that came up with a shocking ruling.
Republican, right?
Republican appointed. I
right.
mean, it's crazy. So he's definitely not the only one. He's got a lot of help here.
Yes.
But at the same time, he's the one that's out there bragging about it, which makes him target number one. Yeah,
but you know something, Cheryl? I never call it Obamacare, because Obama doesn't care. I call it Obama scam. I mean, if you think about it, Obama threw his grandmother under the bus, called her a racist. He threw Reverend Jeremiah Wrong under the bus. I mean, he throws anyone that once he's done with you. Tony Rezko, who hooked him up with his house, he threw him under the bus. So, anyone that he can utilize. And of course, now we see the death panels are actually kicking in. So these people that he's convinced that he's doing this for their own good, do you think people are starting to wake up to see that Obama scam really is a scam?
Definitely, I think people are starting to wake up. The problem is, though, is that people all around the nation, you hear all the horror stories about enrolling in Obamacare or Obama scare, as you aptly term it, and all these price hikes on their medical coverage. But at the same time, Capitol Hill isn't changing. Obama's just digging in deeper, and you have Republicans in Congress who say that there's no hope now to repeal it. We just have to improve it. Well, I say you can't improve something that starts from a faulty premise, which is telling Americans that they have to buy something which is about as anti-American as you can get.
Yeah, it's like improving on the Soviet Union. It crumbled under its own weight, and there is no improving upon making slaves out of millions of people. You cannot improve upon slavery. You can only abolish slavery and come in accord with what God's will would be. I mean, anyone who's a parent would tell you, Cheryl, that human beings are born with a thing called free will.
Exactly, you're right. And that's a God-given gift, though. We should embrace it, not run from it.
Yes. Now, they've gone to calling themselves progressives, which was a term used about 100 years ago, back in the Wilson era, and they destroyed that term so bad, then they switched to calling themselves liberals. Of course, they're the most illiberal people ever, so full of hatred and envy and power mad. They're really not liberal, but now that name liberal got tarnished, so they've gone back in the last 15 years or so to calling themselves progressives. So take that term and share with our audience how they've progressively brought this police state upon us, quite often with our own helping hand.
Right, and first off, I don't buy into that progressive label. To me, progressive is just another term for socialist. And if you look at the progressive, inception and where the progressives are on Capitol Hill, some of them basically, like Benny Thompson, claims to be part socialist. So there's a lot of socialist vein that runs through that progressive label. But what's happened is they've taken these feel-good policies where politicians get to pat themselves on the back for taking care of the people, and Americans who don't care about learning their Constitution and understanding that our nation was built on bootstrap type, pull yourself up by the bootstraps and be independent and seek for your success that way.
Right.
They've capitalized on this mentality that's coursed through our nation now, the entitlement nation, I like to call it. And it's basically become people are relying on government, and government is only too happy to grant those because it gives them more power. And I think that's how the progressive mantra, the progressive ideology has entrenched itself now in America.
Like Esau in the Bible, you sell your birthright in exchange to meet your immediate need. In Esau's case, it was a simple bowl of beans. Okay.
Yep, exactly.
And your birthright is eternal. Your birthright as an American, you're giving that away in exchange for a metaphorical bowl of beans, whether you call it Obama scam or whether you call it food stamps, or even, Cheryl, whether you call it crony capitalism. Let's be honest. A lot of rich millionaires are crony capitalists. They're so afraid to go into a thing called free enterprise that they're willing to sell the rest of the nation down the river to this police state so that they can get rich in the short term, i.e., say the insurance industry. They know that in 8 to 12 years, there's going to be no private insurance industry, but they are getting very, very rich right now.
Yeah, you're exactly right. And I mean, our founding fathers addressed this point. They knew our nation could not stand without a moral, righteous people. And they knew that, we had to look above, not just to our human leaders, our politicians, for guidance and wisdom, but we had to look to a higher power, to God. And that's why the founding fathers, they basically had open prayer meetings, and they did not hide their belief in a higher power and their reliance on God, as we're conditioned to think that we have to now. So I think that's that's probably the bigger problem now, the war to maintain our rights to worship freely in a public venue, more so than any political agenda that pops up in Congress.
Yeah, that's the First Amendment, and that one's always under attack, as is the Second Amendment. And I try to get Black Americans to see that this police state mentality, even though it's by the progressive step, rather than whole hog, as in the Soviet Union in 1917, they're not going to drag folks out and shoot them in the snow. But the first gun laws in America were to make sure that blacks did not have any weapons to defend themselves, to shoot the military wing of the Democrat Party, otherwise known as the Ku Klux Klan.
And, you know, it's reasons like the Second Amendment, without the Second Amendment, and you know this, and I'm sure your listeners do too, without the Second Amendment, every other right, every other amendment would crumble.
Yes.
The Second Amendment is there for each individual to make sure in his or home life and home life, they can maintain those other rights that were guaranteed in the Constitution as based on founding fathers and the Judeo-Christian principles this nation was founded upon. We need the Second Amendment to uphold all the others. It's just, you know, it's simple as that.
Yeah, and you think you write in your book about other communist nations or other state-controlled nations. Germany had a gun registry, and Ukraine, back as recently as President Bill Clinton being in office, turned their nuclear material over to the Clinton administration in exchange for a promise that if the Russian bear ever woke up again, America would come and defend them. And now they have no nukes, and Russia just walked right in, took Crimea, and is now threatening to take the whole nation. So what lessons do you share with the audience from other nations with this creeping, all-encompassing police state here in America?
Right. You know, other nations, you shouldn't look at them as removed and remote from what's going on in America. You only need to look at Connecticut and New York for the battle over Second Amendment rights, and to see what could happen, you know, on a national scale, what could happen if you don't uphold your Second Amendment rights. Just look at New York and the protests and the fights that are going on there, because the state lawmakers there want to implement a registration for the citizens who rightly are allowed to carry. They're permitted holders, and now they have to register their weapons. So look at what happens overseas when registration of weapons starts. That's how they get the weapons out of the hands of citizens. The same thing could happen here in America if we don't pay attention and look at what's happening on the international scale and look at how that could actually play out in our states.
Yeah, and these same people that make these laws, they have 24-hour police protection. And the Hollywood elites, they have 24/7, not police protection, but private security, and they all are packing heat.
Yeah, they live in a bubble, don't they? And it's so hypocritical. You know, forget the people who live in the country, and you know, the nearest police station is 10 miles away, or you know, they don't have good phone service in case somebody breaks into their home. So their only means of defense is that rifle they have in their hallway closet. You know, meanwhile, these people, like you just point out, they have security system, they have armed guards, they have bodyguards that follow them. They work in buildings with 24-hour surveillance and armed guards at the door. So of course they have the luxury of saying that crime isn't a problem. Yeah.
And now go back to the origins of this police state and bring us up to where we are now and where we can perhaps try to stem the tide.
Right. Well, Police State USA just takes a broad look at what's going on in current events, from the environmental movement to a complicit media not doing its watchdog job, to the National Security Administration spying on Americans' phone calls, to homeowners associations where you can't even hang an American flag outside your door without getting fined for it, or you have to fight for that right in court. So Police State USA just goes through chapters of that and gives, you know, a play-by-play, hit after hit of where we are as a nation. And it's kind of a glimpse in time, because you turn the TV on today and things are happening all day long all around the nation. Just look out in Nevada at Clive and Bundy.
Yes.
You know, when it comes down to the rancher didn't pay his bill, so the federal government sent in armed agents to surround his property. What kind of America is that, where armed agents surround your property and think they have the right to hold you at gunpoint because you haven't paid a fee? That's where we are right now.
Yeah. Well, that was so Senator Harry Reid's son could strike a deal with a solar energy company that has the perfect site in Nevada, but they need a buffer zone to move the turtles to. And that 50-mile buffer zone happens to be where Clive and Bundy's cows graze. So they feel like, well, if we can make him out to sound like a racist, people won't mind if we use the police state power against him. And what's that old saying about, when they came after the Jews, I didn't speak up because I was not Jewish, and on and on and on. And when they came for me, there was no one left.
Yeah, that's a good saying to keep in mind. And, Harry Reid, the fact that he's still in office, that's just a red flag to where we are in America right now. We need leaders who are moral and honest. We don't need people who are calling, permitted gun owners domestic terrorists.
Yes.
We don't need a Senate Majority Leader calling Americans names like that and then vowing to continue this armed uprising against citizens. It doesn't make any sense, and it's definitely a police state. People may not want to see it that way, but if you take a hard, fast look at what's going on in America on a day-by-day basis, it's shocking.
Yeah, well, at Ruby Ridge, there was a woman holding her 10-month-old baby in her arms, running away from the event. A sniper shot her in the back of the head.
Yeah, Ruby Ridge is something that I think a lot of people dismissed as a conspiracy theory, and it was only when the true story came out in trickles and pieces a few years later that certain segments of American society saw the truth and were outraged. But that's despicable. The last I remember something like that happening was, Ohio State, the Vietnam War protests and so forth. But, these things really do happen in America where the federal government takes shots at American citizens and gets away with it.
Yes. Now, do you cover anything about the militarization of the police and potentially the use of military personnel against Americans? Because I understand, Cheryl, that that a part of the reason for the military purge by Obama of top military personnel is a two-pronged thing. One is they're purging staunch Christians, and a second is that I've heard that they're purging people that will refuse to use weapons against American citizens.
The names and players involved with what you just say, I don't cover, but I do cover at length the militarization of our local police forces. Police, their oath used to be serve and protect. That used to be their saying. And now it just seems like they're taking on militarized equipment. They're buying up surplus military-grade equipment that's used on the battlefields in Afghanistan. They're purchasing armored vehicles for what? I mean, if they were going after terrorists, that's one thing, but most of their justifications to purchase this equipment, it doesn't fly in the face that a lot of it is for small town community police departments where there's only a few sheriffs, there's only a few police officers that even serve. So there's a lot of that going on, and that's something that Americans should watch with alarm.
Yeah, and they refuse to monitor the border. They refuse to really fight wars with gusto, but they certainly go after American citizens with gusto.
Exactly, with gusto. You're right.
Yes. Well, look. Anyway, your launch date coming up for the book is it May 27th?
It is May 27th. Yes. Yeah.
Well, great, and we wish you much success. And hopefully we can have you back again on our WLEE Central Virginia radio broadcast as we get close to the actual launch date. But can listeners go online and pre-order your book?
Yes, they definitely can. They can get signed copies right now at WNDbooks.com. So please check it out. I'd be happy to hear what you all think about it. And in the meantime, I appreciate it. And you keep up your work, too. It sounds like you're doing great work down there.
Well, we're certainly doing our best, and we're trying hard. And thank you so much. God bless you. you're doing the Lord's work to shine a light on these things, Cheryl.
Oh, thank you for that, and God bless you too.
All right. You have a great evening.
Bye now.
All right. Well, all right, Richmond, and that was Cheryl Chumley, author of Police State USA. And I was talking about Senator Reid and the fact that Senator Reid has 4 sons whose job is to lobby their father. And this is crony capitalism, and this is why I connect communism, socialism, fascism, and crony capitalism. To me, there's no difference. It's all about state control and the government picking winners and losers, who's going to be the slave, who's going to be the millionaire, and they're each only different by what their population will tolerate. In an American-style communism, we won't tolerate tanks coming through the streets, but we'll tolerate Senator Harry Reid having 4 sons that are all multimillionaires doing land deals out in Nevada, where the federal government owns 85% of the land, but they can make a special deal for a special well-connected person who donates money to Harry Reid for the federal government to allow them to develop that land. And that's what's happening near the Bundy Ranch. In order to get this solar power complex in, they have to relocate some turtles, and they need a 50 square mile buffer zone. And the buffer zone is where Mr. Bundy's cattle graze. And there used to be hundreds of cattle farmers that grazed there. And Cliven Bundy is the last one. They slowly, over the years, driven all of them out of business. And this man's family has had cattle grazing there for over 100 years, prior to the existence of the BLM, which is the Bureau of Land Management. And number one, I'm not a black Republican. Number one, I'm an American, I'm a Christian, I'm a human, I'm a member of the human family, and I don't separate myself that way. I've been told that, being that I'm a black conservative, that the Republican Party should be just throwing money at me. But see, I don't go to the Republican Party and tell them that I want to be their Negro expert. That if you just pay me money, I'll go out and I'll go out into the hood. No, I do these things on my own because I believe in it. And I'm going further than what the Republican Party is wanting to do. The Republican Party has their heart in the right place, but the Republican Party is not up on tactics. The Democrat Party, which is trying to take this nation into communism, and they use race, just like the caller. The caller probably means well, probably meant well, but the caller does not understand that he and people like him are being used. And the Cloward and Piven, look this up, caller. Francis Fox Piven and Richard Cloward. The Cloward and Piven strategy. They are a husband and wife team. Well, really, I don't need the paper here. I have about a 10-page article. They wrote an article back in 1966. They're a husband and wife team of sociologists who taught at Columbia University, and they did not want poverty to end. And so, caller, I'm going to need you to hold on while I finish answering the previous caller. I want to thank you for the call. But Cloward and Piven were not wanting poverty to end, but wanted to make poor people angry and wanted to use racism. And these are 2 white people that are using black people to be angry, to be hateful, to be resentful, and to feel like they're not getting a fair shot in America. And so it's basically they do not want poverty to end. And so they've taught this in Columbia, and they've had people been teaching this in other universities, and you have literally an army of social workers out there. For the last 15 or 20 years, they've been advertising on billboards, on radio, on TV to get people to get on welfare and food stamps. And what we conservatives want to do is we want to empower people to get off of welfare, to get off of food stamps, to get a job, to get a good education. And this is why one of the things, and the caller wants to know why I don't march. Well, I don't march because I'm so busy. I'm the school choice advocate over at the Virginia Christian Alliance. I have 3 radio programs. I give speeches. I mean, I'm so busy being positive that I don't have time to march and whine and beg. Okay? And so the preferable thing to do is to have everyone have equal access to a quality education and not have the school board lock poor children away into government monopoly schools that are inferior when they don't send their children to anything but the best school. And so this is why, caller, that I don't do these things. We're getting close to the end of the program, folks. We're up against the end of the program here. And I just want to say that it's been great being here. This is the end of week 6. I want to thank again Akil and Ndwele. I want to thank the many callers, and we even have people that have viewed the program online. I want to thank all of them as well. And this program will be uploaded online as well on YouTube. And the fine folks at Comcast, the fine folks at Verizon, and our several guests that we've had. We just want to say thank you. And this is our 4th year doing this. And I really enjoy doing it, and it's been fantastic. And so I highly encourage you out there, folks, to pay attention. You know, when this nation was founded, 1/3 of the nation wanted to break away from England, 1/3 wanted to stay with England, and 1/3 really didn't care. And so I guess they were the ones that had their head on backwards and just doing their own private, selfish thing. And so the more things change, the more things remain the same. We're still a relatively evenly divided nation, maybe a little bit more center right than we are center left, at least is the way people self-identify. So I just encourage you all out there to continue to be interested. Don't be that guy or that person with the head on backwards, the head in the sand, who's not paying attention. This life is precious. We have children, we have grandchildren, we hope to have great grandchildren. And so stay in touch. We encourage you to check us out at WLEE and at blogtalk.com. And we encourage you to check us out at The First Amendment, Inc. I'm president of the First Amendment, Inc. And stay in touch. And anyone that might want to invite your friendly neighborhood hatchet man, Brother Craig, out to speak, you can reach us, Kimberly at agencyforthearts.com. That's Kimberly at agencyforthearts.com. We will be more than happy to come out to your group. And in the meantime, we just want to say thank you again. And you've been a wonderful audience. We've really enjoyed doing the program. And hopefully we'll see you guys coming up soon on WLEE 5 to 6 p.m. God bless you, Richmond.